Alright, in this video we're going to examine an 18-mark question from past paper asking us to discuss the effectiveness of subsidies as a solution to market failure arising from positive externalities. Right off the bat, I know what I'm looking for. Firstly, definitions of subsidy, market failure, and positive externalities. Diagrams I'm looking for is how the subsidy works, show me a positive externality, and that will ultimately explain the market failure. Okay? Now, let's see what we get here. We have a few definitions right from the beginning, what market failure is, what is a positive externality, and ultimately explaining what the problem is in the situation. And then we jump right into a definition of a subsidy here. A subsidy is a financial intervention provided by the government which lowers the cost of production, which therefore should lower the price, thus increasing the demand and the quantity consumed. Right, we should have an explanation there. This diagram, looking for the correct labels, price, quantity, S for supply, D for demand, or spell it out, a change in price, and we see an increase in quantity consumed or demanded. Now, again, don't make the stupid mistake of messing up the diagram. Make sure you know your stuff. Now, what I'm looking for next is this student then really needs to explain to me that, okay, this is the diagram, but I know what it is and I know how it works, so here's my explanation. And if I read here, the introduction of a subsidy means supply shifts to the right because it reduces the cost of production from S pre-subsidy to S post-subsidy. This lowers the price from P1 to P2, causing an extension in demand shown by an increase in quantity from Q1 to Q2. This should result in higher output and lower prices. The benefits of introducing a subsidy are that it increases consumption and the provision of merit goods which have positive externalities. This could correct market failure. For example, the government does provide a subsidy for education called EMA. This reduces the private cost of education, and consequently people are more likely to stay on in higher education. Excellent. Explains the diagram, tells me the outcome, lower price, increased output. Then we talk about that there's greater consumption of merit goods and the provision of it, they're more supplied. Then correcting market failure, good, and then here's an example. And the example even says the private cost of education decrease and people are more likely to stay on. Now, that's how it works, the benefits. Now let's talk about the drawbacks. The first one brought up is that the burden of a subsidy falls on taxpayers who may not even benefit from the subsidy. Maybe an explanation there could help, that the taxpayer who's paying for the EMA may not be somebody who stays on, right? Maybe who's not as affected by students staying on. If a subsidy is provided, this could lead to a misallocation of resources, and by helping failing companies, it could lead to further problems and thus distort market prices. Good. This is because they protect inefficient firms who need to restructure, so ultimately delaying needed reforms. This is a great point, that we are giving money to people who are not doing a good job, and therefore we need to eliminate or reduce or remove the subsidy because inefficient firms are now in operation that otherwise would not be. The third drawback then brought up is that there's an opportunity cost. And I think opportunity cost is a great concept that's going to be used throughout this exam. You're not going to get away from it. I think from any exam really, it's always going to be part of your analysis and your evaluation, considering what the opportunity cost is for the specific action. I'm happy with these three. If I'm looking at this, I know clearly the student understands the diagram, how a subsidy works, what's a benefit, what's a drawback. So the analysis there is spot on. I mean, it looks like it could use a little bit more meat to it, but I was happy to give this the analysis marks that were required to move up towards the L4 mark band. The effectiveness of introducing a subsidy. Now we're talking about the evaluation. It depends on whether the demand for the good is inelastic or elastic. If the demand for the good is inelastic, it means that a subsidy will not provide a sufficient increase in quantity, as shown by the first graph where there's a large decrease in price from P1 to P2, but only a small increase in quantity from Q1 to Q2. So this is good. This is ultimately showing you that before the subsidy, the only thing that really manages to happen is there's a significant drop in price and a slight change in demand. Okay, so we see that in really increasing consumption, if it's inelastic, what we see here is a change in price, if that's what the policy intends and it's effective. If it's looking more to increase the amount of quantity demanded, then it's going to be more effective with a product that has elastic demand. So the price would drop a little, but demand would increase quite a bit. So this is good. This is evaluating how effective it can be based on the elasticity of the good for the demand. Elasticity of demand for the good. Now, once you've explained the for and against, so here's how it goes. Here's how it works. Here's a for argument. We've got an against argument. Then we have a limitation of its effectiveness, which I'm quite happy with. Then we continue on through that, and always, you have to consider an alternative. So in this situation, there may be another effective method to correct positive externalities arising from market failure instead of a subsidy. It could be correcting information failure, including advertising benefits of a product, which means people will realize the full benefits of this merit good, and therefore they will consume more of the product. So this, I would really like to see the explanation continue on education. Like the student should be looking to make their point even further. Like stay in maybe some public service announcements about the value of education, like a government campaign addressing the needs for students to stay in school. Okay, therefore they will consume more of the product. This changes perceived beliefs of the product and may encourage higher consumption of the good. However, this will also have an opportunity cost, as the government have to use tax revenue to pay to correct information failure. In conclusion, a subsidy would be the most effective method if the product was elastic, right? And explain what that means. However, information failure is more likely to correct market failure if the good is inelastic. All right, so overall, I'm looking at this essay, and I marked L1 knowledge and understanding evident. There's some confusion at times, but I think it's minimal. Right? Pretty much spot on the whole way through. It's applied to education and real-world examples throughout. Could probably use a little bit more of that. The analysis, how it works and its intended effects. The writer also includes a discussion of the drawbacks of subsidies. With one exception, their support with diagrams that are well explained. Now, you don't need a diagram for every single thing. Don't overdo it with diagrams. I'm quite happy with this. The writer could have put something in for the impact of correcting information failure, perhaps through like an advertising campaign. But it's not necessary. I mean, there's sufficient diagrams and explanation was done well. L4, evaluation is achieved, and I would say it's shy of excellent. Sound conclusions are reached and alternatives examined. There is discussion on the effectiveness of subsidies, however, it needs to be more concise to achieve full marks. It read pretty well. I gave it 16 out of 18 marks. The only thing stopping it from being a full 18 is the fluidity. It seems very choppy, and there are points that aren't fully developed at times, but overall, pretty good essay, 16 out of 18 marks.